Welcome to Pokemon Secret Base. This is IGN's show all about Pokemon. I'm your host, Kallie Plaguey, and I'm joined by Miranda Sanchez.
Hello.
And Jose Otero.
Hey.
We have a great show coming up. We have the craziest stories we have from Pokemon Go. Of course, it's one of the biggest things this year so far. We also have the new battle modes in Pokemon Sun and Moon, explaining what they mean, and the best competitive teams going into the World Championships this August. Remember, this is an experimental show, and you're a big part of making it succeed. So please let us know on Twitter, Facebook, in the comments below what you think. Make sure to share with your friends, and we'll keep making these for you. So, to start it off, Pokemon Go. We've seen some crazy, crazy headlines going forward. Some people cheating and getting caught, some robbers. So
romantic cheating.
Some romantic cheating.
Oh,
so let's just start with that one, because this is probably my favorite story, is Pokemon Go used to catch a cheating boyfriend. So basically there's this map feature where it'll show you where you caught a Pokemon. And for right now, it hasn't really been working for me as of late, but apparently this poor woman saw her boyfriend, her now ex-boyfriend, had caught a Pokemon near where his ex lived. I'm not exactly sure how she pinpointed this, but they are now broken up.
Are they sharing like a Pokemon Go account or something? I mean,
there's
a lot of questions here, but the point is...
The moral of the story there is don't share custody of your Pokemon.
Yeah, or just, if you're doing something stupid like cheating, which you should not do, don't give wifey the phone, and expect not to get caught in some way.
Yeah.
Where's your brain at? Seriously. Not that we want to say cheating's okay. Again, it's bad.
Yeah,
you shouldn't do that.
Don't
be respectful to your significant others.
That is not a thing you should do. Yeah. But good on them for getting out in front of that one. I think
be free.
Yeah, one of the crazy stories I actually heard people talking about on the radio was multiple dead bodies found by Pokemon Go players.
Yeah.
So there was the girl who went on a morning Pokewalk near a river and found a dead body in the river. Yeah. And then some women found a dead body in a park. And I feel like this is kind of tangentially related to Pokemon Go. It's not really like a crazy Pokemon Go story. It's just these people happen to be walking outside.
Yeah, and one of the greatest things about Pokemon Go is that you're constantly exploring and going different places you wouldn't have normally, and maybe some places that people hide bodies.
Dumping grounds for
and you never even knew, but it was happening. No, but I agree with Miranda. That's kind of the genius of the app, is just encouraging you to explore either areas where you live or areas that you're just visiting. So the way this has sort of been unfolding is kind of mind-blowing, but you're right that it's tangentially related.
And it's also just a reminder to be safe while you're exploring. Don't go places that you would be uncomfortable going alone.
There's still real-world places. They're no safer because you have your Pokemon with you.
They will not come out of the phone and defend you.
If only. Next Pokemon Go game, I hope.
Yeah, but then tangentially related, there was that story of folks using lures to try and lure out players.
So that's what I was
rob them.
That's what I was getting to next. That's the story that's specific to Pokemon Go, because you can find a body walking around if you're just walking around, but. These people used lures to not lure Pokemon, but people. Yeah. And when
it happens every time, you drop a lure at any location, and if you just look around you, people do start to sort of show up and try and catch something.
Yeah.
It's just part of it. I feel like the game is at its most social, too, at spots where there are lures, because everyone comes over and goes, there's that knowing glance of, hey, I know what you're playing. You did this a second ago.
So
let's talk about this.
But what team are you?
Yeah, it's a real shame to see that kind of exploitation sort of happening with the app. And then I'm someone who, I live up in the East Bay. I open up the app just randomly at night. Sometimes I see lures on in the weirdest places, and I'm just okay, I hope that's just someone who lives around there who just dropped one. But regardless, just don't leave the house if it's late. Don't go by yourself.
Don't go by yourself. Yeah, there's very obvious safety things you should do. Don't go to places you're uncomfortable with or haven't explored during the night.
Yeah, and it basically applies to anything you're just walking around by yourself.
Be safe.
But in happier news, Pokemon Go helped people catch a criminal.
Yeah.
Which was really cool. I think they were former Marine Corps.
Yes.
A guy was bothering kids at a playground.
Jerk.
Which is
terrible.
Worse than Team Rocket
That's
by
super
far.
Scary.
That's awful.
What a punk. Honestly, you have nothing better to do.
Yeah, what? Yeah, you deserve to be caught by Pokemon Go players.
Also, he was wanted for attempted murder, I think.
Yes.
Or something, or suspected of murder.
Yeah, I think he was wanted.
Is very, very scary, and very fortunate that somebody was around to help take care of that guy, especially when kids are there.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah,
absolutely, I agree.
Definitely. This is definitely the roller coaster of Pokemon stories, because we're going from the fun to the serious. Holocaust Museum and Auschwitz museums are asking players not to play Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
which I feel like that's not something you should have to ask.
Yeah.
Don't catch Pokemon when you're learning about a genocide.
Yeah, it's such a difficult situation though, right? Because Pokestops are labeled and chosen by, Niantic and player feedback, stuff that they learned on Ingress, and they even have this other app called Field Trip that has to do with like informing you on locations. But yeah, the unfortunate part is that a museum, a more serious museum, not one like the Museum of Natural History or the Art Museum, where it's a little bit more fun. Someone put an image on Reddit of a coughing the Pokemon inside of the Auschwitz Museum, and it was really disturbing. And no one thinks that's real. Like most folks think that was fake. You can Photoshop that.
But that's not.
And
funny.
I also don't think Niantic would be just not sensitive to like that kind of idea or that happening. But it's the unfortunate fallout of this app being so popular is that it's bringing groups of people maybe to places to catch Pokemon where they shouldn't.
Yeah. Like there's all those police stations too, like people going places where they really shouldn't be trying to catch Pokemon. It's like, guys, calm down a little bit.
Yeah, police stations having to say, you don't have to come inside. We have actual work to do. I do think, it's the same sort of politeness and manners you would previously, before Pokemon Go, you would have displayed at a Holocaust museum.
Right, like you probably shouldn't just be on your phone the entire time anyway, right?
Exactly, so it's, again, this is another one of those stories where it's not necessarily Pokemon Go's fault, but it is very, this one's is definitely the least funny of them because this isn't a joke.
Well, it's a slippery slope too because you have businesses that have actually been thriving because Pokemon Go, right? You have more people visiting than ever.
Yeah.
But then you have the flip side, which is, an organization like the Jewish Holocaust Museum should absolutely be able to delist themselves.
I think,
say,
there are ways
take
you
us
can
off,
contact
please.
Niantic and try to see if you can get your Pokemon stuff or Pokestops or gyms or whatever unlisted.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure exactly how that process goes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think, there's some sort of reporting. One that we don't have on the list, I'm just going to throw a curveball at you guys, is the guy whose house was a former church.
Right.
And
I saw that story.
became a gym.
Yeah.
And he was joking on Twitter, sort of jokingly, but also like, hey, this is sort of a problem for me, is that people kept coming up to his house and driving away, and it made his house look like a drug dealer's house.
Yeah, he had to tell the neighbors,
Like,
hey, I haven't gone Breaking Bad on you guys. This is not,
It's just
it's not like this.
But it is, I just think it's just an interesting thing to think about the real world consequences of your house or just somewhere near you being a virtual location.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then going into the lighter stories finally, the Pokemon theme song, plays of the Pokemon theme song jumped 382% on Spotify.
You gotta get your trainers list going. When you're going out to catch Pokemon, you have to have your theme.
I am guilty
I have a
as
playlist.
charged.
Really?
I definitely did this.
Oh yeah, I have a playlist ready to go,
Yeah.
Nice.
to set the mood.
Yeah.
I was doing laundry with my roommate, and we're in the laundry room doing the Poke Rap, and she has it on playing. And then some random guy walks in, and we both just went silent and just paused it. But yeah, definitely you need the appropriate theme music.
At the Embarcadero, I was catching Pokemon. I've been making that part of my routine now when I leave the office. But one time a gentleman passed by and he had his phone, he had a Bluetooth speaker, and it just blasted, gotta catch 'em all. And I was like, oh my God. That was the first time I was really aware of how popular that song was again. And then I saw that headline and I was like, well, of course. How did I not think of this?
It's the theme song of a generation.
Yeah.
And then last, my favorite story, because I can't believe this is real. On July 10th, more people, according to Google Trends, this was tweeted by the YouPorn Twitter account.
Oh God.
More people searched for Pokemon Go on Google than just the word porn, just porn in general. And YouPorn basically tweeted congrats, you guys won.
Thanks, Pokemon.
One for a day.
Porn has been defeated. I can't believe that.
So weird.
I mean, it definitely speaks to the level of phenomenon that this has sort of attained, right? Just popularity, everyone, your grandparents, your parents are asking you about it in some way.
Yeah, that's what we've been saying.
What is this?
This is an all ages thing. Whenever I've gone to Pokestops and there's a lure down, you see all sorts of people. You see kids with their parents, you see adults, you see couples, you see older couples, and it's just really cool to see how many people are actually playing this game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really surreal. I went for a Poke Walk over the weekend, and I was on a main street near where I live. And there's some bars, and I'm walking and playing, and there's people hanging out outside the bars, not drinking because they're outside, and playing, and they don't know the names of the Pokemon. They're 20-somethings, late 20s, early 30s. Yeah. They're just playing because it's the thing everyone's playing, and they are like, I'm catching the starfish, and I'm like, like
holding it in, just.
I'm just proud of you for trying. I'm so proud.
It's just nice to see more people having fun with Pokemon too. Like
exactly, Pokemon's for everyone.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people like, well, you're just on the bandwagon. It's like, aren't we happy to see more people
the hipster Pokemon catchers?
Yeah, like, well, I was in this when it started, and you're just here because everyone's playing.
That's that attitude people have where it's like, I got bullied for this in middle school, so now I'm going to bully people for liking it now, and I just don't agree with that. I think it's super, super cool that it beat out porn, that more people are listening to that dumb theme song we all sang when we were 10.
Amazing falsetto on that song.
Yeah, the falsetto.
Yeah, it's just good to have fun with other people.
Yeah, it's just Pokemon Go craziness. All right, we really need to talk about Pokemon Sun and Moon because there have been a lot of new battle modes introduced since E3.
Yeah, at E3 they really only showed off the 4-person battle royale. Like that was the biggest feature I think you saw out of that, aside from the gameplay. But since then, like you said, there's just been so much more.
Yeah, since E3, in addition to battle royale, we also just very recently got updates to the Pokemon Global Link, which is the website that currently runs with XY, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire. It's getting an update for Sun and Moon.
That cancels out X and Y and Omega Ruby, which just for folks, right, who are planning to stick to those games, like you're going to have to move up if you want to continue to use whatever features you were through that side.
Yeah, for competitive play, you always have to kind of keep up with the latest installment.
That's
and they're introducing 2 new friendly competition modes. One's called just casually online competitions. Basically, it seems sort of like competitive queuing. You are going to be able to play multiplayer matches over the internet with anybody around the world.
That's so exciting.
Which is super cool. It's the equivalent of solo queuing in other competitive games, except you're always solo in Pokemon.
That's right.
Which is one of the things I love about competitive play is you're relying
But
very
you're
much
not
on
really
yourself.
solo because you have your friends with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to say we're on the same wavelength. I was going to say that. Your friends, your Poke friends will carry you through the battle. And then the other one is live competitions where players can host their own tournaments with friends.
So I love this. I think that, for example, even the show, if this continues to grow and you guys help share and make it successful, like I think that this show can host its own Pokemon tournament.
Oh yeah,
that folks can
absolutely.
sign up for, and you can control. Are you using the Alola decks? Are you using the national decks? You're controlling the period, how many matches a day people are allowed to play. I think that's really cool. It reminds me a lot of Mario Kart 8's tournament feature, where you were able to set all of that up in game. The only strange thing to me is that this requires the website. I kind of hope that some form of setting them up does flow into the game itself, and if not, and that's it, I'm okay with it. But I kind of hope that stuff is there.
It's like a lot better than planning by hand a whole competition, because I remember like in high school and stuff we would have competitions and someone had to sit down, get all the rules written,
Get
and
the bracket,
set everything up. And that's just so much more hassle. This makes it everything different.
It makes it a lot easier, and it actually is a great answer to the online tournaments hosted like for Smogon rules. So there, on Smogon, if you're not familiar, there's tiers like overused Pokemon, and Smogon as a community organizes their own tiers and says these Pokemon fit in this tier, and you can use this tier and below and stuff like that. This seems to be the answer to that. Like I can go in and set up a tournament with the rule, I don't want any legendaries because I'm old school and I don't want to play with legendaries or whatever it is, which is super, super cool, especially if you, we'll get to that a little bit later, but if you aren't happy with current rules, or you just want to try a different kind of battle mode, if you want to experiment with the new kinds of abilities or items that you wouldn't normally use with the normal rules, or that aren't viable normally. Like one of my favorite things about Smogon is you can have like Little Cup, which is all baby Pokemon.
Aww.
Which of course you're never gonna have a chance to use that because they're just gonna get slaughtered. But it's really cool to get the concept of setting your own rules.
Yeah, I just hope they have some built-in sharing features for it. And if they don't, I think it's fine, because like we all travel and either use Facebook or Twitter or whatnot, social platforms, to get the message out about, hey, we have a cool tournament. But I think that's just as essential, right? Like giving people those tools are great, but then the next step is just making sure that they can blast that messessage and make sure that their friends know that tournament's happening. Yeah,
this is just an exciting first step, especially for Pokemon. It's been very insular. There's either Play Pokemon. I mean, this is all part of Play Pokemon essentially, but it can be kind of hard to break into if you're not familiar. And it seems like
or if you don't have people to play with around you. So that's really important.
They're giving you the tools to be able to play competitive Pokemon, which brings me to the next feature, which isn't a battle mode, but hyper training. So this is the next step of super training, essentially. So super training was introduced in Generation 6, so with X and Y. for easier EV training. So you can kind of visualize how EV training works. And before, there was a huge barrier to entry with that. And now hyper training appears to let you change your Pokemon's IVs, the base stats that you can never alter except by breeding before, which is so exciting.
Yeah, I just wonder what it does to breeding on the other hand, right? Because you have items that have been introduced like Destiny Knot, for example, and a way to like pass on 5 IVs like guaranteed between the parents to the child Pokemon from the breeding experiment.
So
I just wonder, does that like sort of die down a little, or is, like how do you balance this so that on one hand you have people doing that, and on the other you have folks choosing at level 100? Like, does doing it at level 100 make it easier? Is I guess the thing I want to know.
Maybe. I mean, I have a theory about this, and it's that you have to trade bottle caps to a man named Mr. Hyper. And this sort of reminds me of heart scales, where you could trade them for altering your moves and stuff. Where there's a limited number of them, they're hard to find. So I imagine bottle caps are going to be hard to find as well. So I think...
So breeding will still be important, but if you need a little extra help, or if there's one Pokemon specifically that you're training, then you can focus on their IVs with bottle caps.
Exactly, and I think this could really come in handy with legendaries. Because legendaries were introduced for the 2016 season. They hadn't been allowed in competitive play for years. Legendaries were just introduced back into the competitive scene, so you can have 2 legendaries on your team, and you have to do a lot of RNG manipulation or soft resetting, and it's so tedious in order to get a legendary that's competitively viable. With the nature you want and the IVs you want, it's so time consuming to the point where I'm like, I don't even want to do this. There's ways around it, especially with the RNG stuff, but I think this could make the legendaries you caught, I mean, all the legendaries you can only catch once. So if you screw it up, you have to restart the game.
This is true. Or at least before like you caught it, essentially. Like have a save point.
Yeah, like I beat Alpha Sapphire, and now if I want to use Groudon, in a competitive team, I have to, I'm in Alpha Sapphire, so I'm not going to get Groudon, but I'd have to get a copy of Mega Ruby and then replay it and then do all that RNG and resetting.
It's a really good observation. I think that's really smart. I wonder too if then with super training, you had the idea of course, working on the EVs instead, but you also had ways to reset those stats.
The reset
and I
bag.
wonder, if you had a reset bag, which was this white bag that you would earn randomly, there was no reliable way to get it, which was kind of a bummer for me because I just wish that you had an option that it was an automatic way to get that thing versus a drop thing. There's still random
your
things.
Pokemon berries.
Yeah, just tap that screen all day and whatnot. So I wonder if that will even play into it, and to some degree I hope so, because if there's one thing that I think is valuable to the competitive meta is the idea of being able to respec and just say, oh, okay, I'm not feeling this build, I want to do this over, let me do that with a reset bag.
Exactly. And I think some people expressed to me that they were sort of worried like this is going to make it too easy and lower the barrier to entry too much, and I don't really think that's the intention here.
Yeah, I think it'll keep it balanced. Like the point you made with legendaries is super important too, because if you can't viably, you can't just like breed them. So like, how are you supposed to make sure that's better? And especially if they're used so much in competitive play, it's important.
It is really important, and I think Pokemon's all about being accessible to everyone, and this is just making something that a lot of people enjoy more accessible to more people.
And they've been doing that with breeding for the past 3 games. It's been getting easier and easier to get the Pokemon you want if you had the right set of items and if you follow the right regimen. Versus prior games where it was just like, who would do this? Like, why would you do this? But folks who are really competitive would do it, and that's not to disrespect those folks.
Yeah, I mean, you're still, competitive play is a lot of breeding, but it's so much more than that. There's a lot of stuff in battle that if you support the show, perhaps we will talk about more in a later episode. But I do want to get to really quickly the new battle interface they introduced at E3.
Right.
This is probably the most minor new battle thing, but I really love how it looks.
It's so sleek.
It's beautiful. I mean, they keep upgrading it, and this is just the best iteration thus far.
I agree.
It's definitely not a step back in any sense. You can keep track of stat changes, which is just handy if you're in a battle for a long time, or if you closed your 3DS and stepped away or whatever. Seeing, okay, this Pokemon has lowered accuracy and it increased its attack or whatever.
You can see just how much that's changed too. It's not just a random, ambiguous kind of like, well, I guess it's this many ticks. It's like, no, this is exactly how much your stats have changed.
Yeah.
And you can kind of, predict when you need to maybe raise your stats a little bit. So
maybe throw in a
when's-
swords dance.
like when's the best time for that now instead of just like guessing at it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that this goes back to accessibility also is you can, it'll display whether your move is a super effective, just effective, not very effective, or not effective at all in the case of Ghost on normal and vice versa, which I think is just helpful for new players to learn type matchups.
Yeah.
I know there's some that are kind of common sense, like water is good against fire, because in real life that's what happens.
Yeah.
But there's some, like I have little devices in my head where I'm like, when it gets cold, the ground breaks, and that's why ice is good against ground. Like, so
exactly.
it's much easier for new players, young and older, to kind of get used to the type matchups.
Yeah, and there's never been a better time. I feel like Pokemon Go is this booming success, and one thing that it is doing is sort of reuniting people with the Pokemon IP. It is free brand advertising. It is a free-to-play game.
Yeah.
But how many of those people might say, wait, there's a new generation of this game coming out, and want to reconnect with that? I think it'll be really interesting to see if that happens, and thankfully there'll be a game that's a little more accessible for them to jump into, because there is nothing more annoying sometimes than looking at it and going, there's 700 of these. I don't quite know if this what move I should be going with here, or if I'm making the right decision. And
It's
that's
hard to
painful.
learn.
Yeah, it's something you can get over time, and folks have done it. But making it accessible, I think, is a great move. Really quickly with DUI, I also love that. I think last item is in the top left-hand corner. It's tied to the Y button. Yeah, I love that, because before you had to jump back into the menu just to see it and be able to pick it. So having that on that screen is also just, thank goodness. Like, keep doing it. Like, this is so far the best look of that bottom screen I've seen yet.
Oh, it's excellent.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the best competitive Pokemon teams for the 2016 series, because the World Championships are coming up in August.
They're gonna be here.
Yeah.
They're going to be
So
in San
exciting.
Francisco.
Yeah.
IGN is going to be there. So if you see us, say hi if you're around. But there's been some rule changes this series. So last year, there were no legendaries around. This year they reintroduced 2 legendaries per team. There used to be kind of like limited Pokemon that you weren't allowed to use, and I think that began around 2010. And so they basically said, okay, you can use legendaries again, but not like Mew, because there's legendary Pokemon, and then there's like mythical Pokemon.
Yeah.
So you can use certain legendaries, and they have a list, and you can only use 2 from the list and all this stuff.
Okay.
But basically that really changed the landscape of competitive for me. Just thinking about how hard it is to obtain a competitive legendary, doing all of the resetting to get a Pokemon that will work. So looking at the team so far, especially from the U.S. Nationals, I want to focus on the U.S. Nationals, because that's sort of the environment that we're going to be used to here, especially in San Francisco, and the one that I'm always watching because I find it very interesting.
Nice.
But the Masters division, so there's 3 divisions in competitive Pokemon, if you don't know. Masters, which is I think 17 or 16 and above. So Masters is usually like older teenagers and 20-somethings, and then senior and junior divisions.
Junior's so cute,
Junior
by the way. Yeah,
Junior's-
cutest division by far.
And these
Yeah.
kids are smart
Yes.
too.
It's so
Agree.
impressive to see how deep they dove into Pokemon, because like when I was there, it's just like, nah, man,
Nah.
I caught
You
the
just-
Pikachu.
You get your Charizard.
good.
There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
12 Pikachus.
well, yeah, 12 on a team. But yeah, on that note, talking about the teams people are using, because I do think it's really, really interesting knowing that introduced legendaries. I mean, last year, 2015 teams were very limited. You saw a lot of Cresselia, a lot of Mega Kangaskhan, a lot of Smeargle, and you're seeing a lot of that
They're
still.
back. Surprise.
They're back. So the Master Division champion, Chase Liebert, I hope I'm saying that right, he had 6 to choose from. In competitive Pokemon, you bring 6, and you get to see your opponent's 6, and then you choose 4 for a doubles battle. So you don't always know which Pokemon your opponent chose. So in every one of his 3 matches against his opponent, he brought in Mega Kangaskhan, Xerneas, Groudon, and Cresselia. So Xerneas, Groudon was a super popular legendary duo. Almost every team utilized at least one of those, a lot of them together, because they just synchronize really well.
Sure.
And he actually struggled a lot in that match. So I watched the whole match. The three different games, he lost the first one.
Okay.
Just totally like kind of
wrecked, kind of.
fantastically. Yeah. The opponent had Smeargle and Groudon also.
Okay.
Salamence, he used Mega Salamence, and a Bronzong for Trick Room.
Got it.
So they each had a Trick Room setter. Trick Room is really, really popular. If you don't know, Trick Room swaps the speed, so the slowest Pokemon will move first.
Nice. It's a way to mess with your opponent for sure.
Yeah. And the problem, and you saw them sort of predicting this in this match, is if you have a Trick Room setter on each team, it's a game of, am I going to use Trick Room, or is he going to use Trick Room?
Yeah.
And that happened in, I think, game 2 of their match, where the opponent had, his name was Aaron, he had a Bronzong out, and Chase has a Cresselia out, and you're like, who's gonna use Trick Room? Because if one of you uses Trick Room, then you're screwed. But if both of you use Trick Room, then you've just nullified each other and you wasted a turn for that Pokemon. So what he ended up doing was actually switching Cresselia out and turning the tide of the match. So that's the big thing is, it's not just breeding, it's not just picking the strongest legendaries, it's all about how you play them.
Yeah, strategy is super important, and like making sure you can counter your opponent's strategy is very challenging too.
Yeah, so one of the things is the Cresselia he chose, instead of bringing Bronzong for Trick Room, Bronzong was probably the most popular Trick Room setter that I saw. He brought Cresselia because it was more effective versus Groudon, and that paid off because the opponent had Groudon, not Xerneas. People were choosing Bronzong for a Xerneas counter.
Got it.
And so this is that whole metagame isn't just the actual match you're playing, it's also, okay, the Pokemon I'm bringing, I have to think about what my opponents are bringing, and I wanted to highlight one of the unique teams we saw that actually did really well.
These are always the most exciting because the meta always narrows down the player pool so much. It's just like, okay, well, you're going to see these Pokemon, and you're going to see these Pokemon again, and again, and again, and then the person who comes out says, no, I'm going to do something different.
Just like the Pachirisu
the
that
best.
just took it all like a couple years ago.
That's what you're always so excited to see, though, because like you want to see people get creative with their teams, right?
Yeah.
And so in addition to looking out for the Groudons and the Xerneases and the Cresselias, you want to try to look out for wild cards. And so one competitor, Alan Chambers, used Kyogre and Rayquaza as his two legendaries, which was really rare. The advantage, of course, to using Kyogre or Groudon is that they have primal reversion, so it's like having a third mega option. You get a couple mega options.
Right.
It's like having an extra mega.
Okay.
And then having Rayquaza, he didn't use Mega Rayquaza always. He had Mega Gengar, and Mega Gengar is really cool and wasn't seen anywhere else in the Masters Division finalists. Because it has Shadow Tag. So once you have a Mega Gengar out, your opponent can't switch. And switching, like we saw with the competition, I mean, when Chase had to do a very strategic switch on his Cresselia, and he wouldn't be able to do that against this Gengar.
Yeah.
So that's a really sneaky move. He also had Crobat, which I haven't seen used in years. I was so stoked. Crobat is like one of the fastest Pokemon there is. I love Crobat so much. Yeah. And so for someone to bring out a Crobat in this, it was just really, really cool to see.
Means business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he had Thunderous, which was really popular in the last 2015 series. Thunderous and Landorus both are super popular because they're pseudo legendaries. They're very powerful.
So has the Kangaskhan train finally left the station?
No, that's here to stay for a while, probably.
Chase led with his Mega Kangaskhan every match.
That's the one that everyone was ripping their hair out over 2 years ago, a year ago.
My fave.
Yeah.
I love my Kangaskhan.
Yep.
And I was so proud because my Kangaskhan has the same moveset as Chase's Kangaskhan. So it's like I trained a good Kangaskhan.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm really excited to see once we get to the World Championships. So just wrapping this up and going into what to expect from these teams from the World Championships at the end of August. I'm excited to see the Japan teams come in.
Are they the more creative, like what you say?
Well, it's just a different set of metagame. I mean, the metagame is very specific to, like, just from everything we've learned from the U.S. Nationals, you're predicting what your opponent's going to bring, you're predicting what your opponent's going to do in the match, and trying to predict wildcard Pokemon. And you're doing that for the U.S. first, if you're a U.S. player.
It's just a style of play, right? Like
that's how
versus
you get
overseas trends, which may not make their way over here. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. Last year, my favorite player to watch was actually the juniors champion, Kotone.
Oh, she was so good.
She was really good. One of the only female competitors in the whole thing. So I was so proud of her. She comes out with like this shiny Mega Gardevoir, like she was perfect. And
she dominated, if I remember right. Yeah,
she wrecked.
Like really.
Yeah, and it's important because the U.S. teams weren't really using Mega Gardevoir. I mean, they were sticking with like Mega Kanga, and from what I remember, and she was a very uncommon Pokemon to use, or I guess it doesn't always have to be she, but she wears a beautiful ball gown, so.
Yeah.
But it's really, really cool because you get that extra element, and that's part of what makes the best players the best, is they're thinking about overseas challengers as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to watch all the metagames.
You gotta watch a lot.
Gotta see.
Just the championship match between Chase and Aaron was 30 minutes.
Wow.
So it's a lot. I mean, I riveted the whole time.
Yeah.
But what are you guys excited to see from the World Championships, just to finish up?
I always just want that surprise Pokemon, like who is going to bring something unique. That's always what I'm looking for. Like everyone plays to the meta, and people who break out from that are always the most interesting, I think. Even if they lose, I just want to see what they do and how they counter the meta.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you both. I feel like it's always just that surprise of no one was thinking of this before it showed up. I feel like that's what happened, at least with Pachirisu a few years ago, where I was like, wait, no person, I think, there. And he had his little plushie, by the way, on the table as well. But there's just always that dynamic of, like, you don't know what to expect. The overseas players are going to bring it. And I feel like that's true of every competitive meta I've seen, any game that's played at a global scale. When Japan shows up, Japan will pull out a character that sometimes you're just like, wait, what? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no one here's using that. What are you doing?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully there's some big surprises over there.
Absolutely.
All right, that's all the time we have. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Let us know what you think in the comments on Twitter and Facebook. This is an experimental show, so make sure you share because we want to keep making these. We want to know what you think. Thank you so much, Miranda and Jose, for joining me.
Absolutely.
I hope you guys had fun. We'll see you next time. Bye.